Hey everybody, this is Leetcode SQL question 181, employees earning more than their managers. I'll be using Postgres as my dialect here. So we have one table here, it's called employee, and we've got four columns, and we've got an ID column, which seems to be the primary key. We've got a name of an employee, the salary that the employee takes home, and the manager that the employee reports to, and they've asked us to write a solution to find the employees or find all the employees who earn more than their managers. And we do not have to return the result in any specific order. We can just return any random order. And the result for format is in the following example. So we have four employees here. And if you look at here, Joe, the employee Joe has a salary of 70,000, and it reports to manager with ID 3. So ideally Joe reports to Sam, and Sam makes just 60,000, right? So Joe makes 10,000 more than Sam. So if you look at this, right, we've got one table, and if you kind of try and think about this intuitively, we kind of know we have to kind of fetch all the managers for each employee and try and compare their salaries, right? So if you think about this, we need to select something from our employee table, right? And let's just give it as E and say where the E dot salary is greater than, let's say, the manager's salary, right? So let's say M dot salary, right? Where we have a manager value there. And one thing we would do is, so they asked us to do this essentially, and we just need to return the employee, right? Or the name of the employee. So I can say select name as employee from the employee table. And how do I kind of get this end dot salary, right? How do I kind of map these? How do I map the employee and his or her manager, right? So this is where you kind of have to join with the same table, and because we kind of have to match the exact values for the ID of each user or the each employee has to go with the manager ID here. And so like this becomes the ID, right? This three refers to this three here. So you kind of know like you have to join a inner join. So I'm gonna say inner join on the employee table, and I'm gonna call this M to kind of refer to like that's the first employee and the manager employee. And I'm gonna say on where E dot ID is equals to, or sorry, the E dot manager ID equals to M dot ID, right? So we want to match here. Let's say if we take the example for Joe here, we have Joe's manager ID is 3, and we need to map with join with this where Sam happens to be the manager here. And so we have E dot manager ID, sorry, manager ID equals to M dot ID, and M is just employee table. And once we joined it, we want to filter with this. We're going to say where E dot salary is greater than the manager ID salary or manager salary. So we got select name as employee from employee table, inner join the employee table on M, where manager E dot manager ID equals M dot ID, and where the salary happens to be this. Let's just try and see if this works. Okay, we've got select name is ambiguous because we're joining the table. Obviously, this happens. We just need to select from the employee table, and we can do select e dot name as employee. So let's just see if the output was okay. So we'll just run this again, and the test case has been accepted. Let's just submit this, and this happens to work for us. Now, if we could think about this, right? So you could also have a subtable created, like using SCTE. And so oftentimes, if we kind of think about this, right, as a subtable problem here. So let me just comment this out and say, if I had a subtable with the name and the employee salary and the manager salary, right? And if I had this table, so I could say here I would say Joe, and I would have the employee salary as 70,000, and this is 70,000. And if I say this, the manager salary happens to be 60,000 here, 600, 6,000, 60,000. And if we were able to create a table like this, and what I'm trying to say here is if the question was kind of more, with there were a couple of more constraints and stuff, you could do this. If you're able to construct this table, we can just say select name from subtable, like let's just call this table as subtable. And then we could just say select name from subtable where employee salary is greater than manager salary, and that would just return our result. And we could just rewrite this joining example here with our CTE, right? So I could just try and write this. Let's see if we are able to do that. So I can say with subtable as some table that we're trying to create. We know we need a name, so I'm going to say select name from employee table, and we'll just say e.name as, and we know we need to return this as employee, so we'll just say employee here as employee from employee e. I'm going to say the same. I'm going to say inner join using the employee table, a alias of m, and say on e dot id or e dot manager id, the exact same thing, or m dot id, and we could have this. So this would create a table, and we need to fetch something more here. We'll say, I'll just put this in different rows. So we have e.name as employee, and I'll say the employee salary here. I'm going to say employee salary as, I'll say e.salary, e.salary as employee salary, and for the manager salary, I'll say m.salary as manager salary. And this should kind of work, right? So if I just comment this too, so we have a subtable that creates a table of this format, a name with as employee as the key. So this is what we just constructed. We've got employee salary, we've got manager salary from employee. We join it with employee table self-join essentially. And we say on manager ID equals e.m.id. And we just now all we have to do is select all the employees from the subtable where the employee salary is greater than manager salary, and this should work. Theoretically, we could just test this out, and that works. If I just submit this, let's see if that works also. And the test case has been accepted here too. So yeah, that's all. We got two solutions here. You can always go for the first solution because that's kind of much easier than what we wrote here. But if the question is like has a lot more constraints, so you could just this kind of makes the visualization process a lot easier. Even if you had like more columns, you could just create the subtable using a CTE, like common table expression, and then kind of your end SQL query would be like much easier. It was like, hey, this is the kind of logic from this kind of the logic all I need. And that's all for this video. Thank you for watching.